Hi, Rona. Welcome. It's so great to see you.
Great to see you too.
So excited to have you here for our first alumni interview. I'm just trying to put together, or I am putting together, sort of a series of interviews with people who have been transformed through this work with the horses and who have really experienced the power and the profound wisdom of these incredible creatures that we partner with in this work. So welcome, and yeah, can you tell us a bit about yourself, Rana? Where are you coming from? Where are you chiming in from? When did you take the program? And tell us about your horses.
Okay, so I'm chiming in from Owen Sound, Ontario, and I took the program in September 2019. And it seemed to be like a piece of the puzzle piece coming together. We had several horses already here on our property, and it's funny how you look back and you think it didn't make sense to have any of them come into our lives until it was like this piece of the puzzle. And I said to my husband, can you imagine if everything that we've built so far, like there was this reason and this purpose behind it all. So it started with my horse 6 years ago, Thunder. She came in to our lives and completely transformed me. It was a huge catalyst. She was for me questioning where I was spending my time and my energy. And and then we had two minis come in as companions for Thunder, and yeah, and then we just kept finding more. And we have this special horse. I kind of call her our princess because she's just special. And her name is Mora. And we actually ended up purchasing her for my daughter to ride. And maybe we'll talk about her journey and my journey a little bit more. But so she actually was a lot of kind of my next shift in learning more about her horses and how to tune into them, because she had a locked pelvis and we had no idea. I just knew that she wasn't being mean when she was being ridden by my daughter. She just, because she was so heartbroken when my daughter was struggling riding her. So I just knew there had to be something else. So it's just amazing then how a few years later I come into this training in order to learn how to tune in to the horses to truly understand what's going on with them physically and emotionally. And then next, around the same time, we had Honey come into our lives. She just yeah, again, I just trusted my gut. She just seemed like she needed to be here with us, and she has been another huge teacher. It's almost like she is kind of the one that's like, okay, Rana, you're not listening. Start listening to us. And she found many ways in order to get me to open up. And then in the spring of last year, Chico came into our lives, and he is a gelding, and it's been pretty comical watching him. He has quite a personality. He's quite playful. So it's been very educational, really, for me to watch the dynamics of all the horses and their personalities as well. Mhm.
Amazing, amazing. So when you enrolled in the Horse Wisdom Yoga Certified Teacher Training, can you tell us a little bit more about why you chose to take this training?
Hmm. So I kind of felt as if I was guided to take the training. I stepped away from my role as a secondary school teacher in June of 2019. And I just knew there was something different. I didn't know what it was. I had another person come in my life that had me kind of take a step back and to be able to look at things with a new lens. And actually a friend found your post on Facebook for this training. So I read up on it. And that's when I said to my husband, could you imagine, like, this is the piece that would tie everything together. So that's pretty much how I came across your training, and I had no idea really what I was walking into. But I knew enough to listen and to be open and to be brave enough to take that step. And I'm forever grateful that I did.
So glad. I'm so glad you were part of the training. It was so amazing to have you there and your energy and to witness like just the transformation, even from, I mean, so much has happened since then, and hopefully we'll get into some of that as well. But I mean, just the transformation, even from day 1 to day 5 of the on-site, and then moving through your practicum, and just how much was there waiting to be shifted and stepping into this very special work with horses that you're now offering on your farm. So it's been amazing to watch that journey unfold for you, and it's been such a privilege to be a part of that path. So can you share a little more about how did this training, what happened with your horses after? Like how did it help to shift or transform your relationship with them, or did it?
So prior to actually going to the training in the summer, I'll back up, in which I was working out of the one room upstairs, and it was like honey was calling to me from the field, and I had no idea why. I was like, this is uncharacteristic that I had noticed. And so when I took the training, it was like I was able to just be able to have a different perspective, that you actually can connect with the horses. And because prior to that, I think that selfishly we almost connect with them because they are so giving, right? Even I go back in years, and when my daughter was horseback riding, and I used to go into the barn and I'd walk down the aisle, and whatever horse was willing to kind of poke its head out to connect with me, and not that at the time I knew even what that language was, I was just grateful for it. And I realized how it helped me to settle my energy and my stress and everything that I was feeling. So in that, I've learned that yes, horses are more than willing to help us as human beings, but us as well to be able to in turn help them. And that for me was a huge shift in how can we, and a lot of it is shutting off all the static and the clutter that we have going on in our heads, and to be able to just connect and feel. And so for me, that shifted everything. And I'm fortunate that when I do get back into my headspace, honey, she's a little more physical. Like I'll get the nudge, or I'll get the bump, or hey, you're not listening. I'm like, oh, okay, I know I need to tune in. I'm not listening. And then, yeah, it's cool. It's pretty neat. And it's funny because my son sometimes thinks, really, Mom, horses don't talk, and but they do. And it's just us stepping out of our way in order to listen and to connect. And so that's been a huge shift for me since taking the training.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. It's so, I find it just so fulfilling to be able to communicate with the horses in their language, like in a way that is out of our minds and out of our agendas. Humans are really, mind related and brain related, whereas horses are all relative to the heart. So they're bringing us into our bodies and into our hearts, and we're learning how to communicate from this place that we've never really been taught, but yet it's who we truly are. So it's almost like a homecoming, when we're with the horses. Yeah. So I'm curious. So you were a yoga teacher, obviously, before taking the program. That's our prerequisite. We designed it that way because it kind of guarantees us that everyone who comes into this work with the horses has done at least 200 hours of some kind of inner work. So we know you've done a lot of inner work, Rona, because you've done other things too, and you had your wellness company as well. But I'm wondering how this program, or if this program transformed yourself in any way, your own practice, your yoga practice, your connection to your higher self? Did anything come through that way from this training?
Yes, huge. So honestly, when I took my 200-hour yoga teacher training, I was kind of relatively new to the world. Um, but I always have a desire to learn and to, yeah, to just learn, right? And so I would say I had the physical part under control, right? And then, which I understand, when we're physically active and we're connected in with our bodies, that it helps us mentally. For me, this was the spiritual piece, and it was all of it connecting together. And it's interesting. Sometimes you look and you think, well, why didn't I figure this out sooner? But it wasn't time for me to figure it out sooner. It wouldn't have created this much, like, it's just exactly the way it was supposed to be, is really it. And so, because what I've learned is, in order to truly tune in with the horses, we have to be in tune with ourselves. Like how can you be grounded enough to be open to listening to the horses if you're not connected with yourself and in your spirit and the universe? Like, you have to have some level of connection and understanding there. So I feel that I've put the foot to pedal to the metal, so to speak, and it's been super accelerated, but it was just, it was like the catalyst for me for the change and the shift that I needed to have happen in my life in order to be able to do the work and develop the relationships with the horses.
I love that you said that about how can you connect with the horses and how can you really show up for the horses if you're not at that place with yourself. That's such a huge piece to this work, and to doing this work with horses authentically. It's that really is a big chunk of it, is how am I showing up for myself? And if we can't show up for ourselves, how can we really show up for clients, and for the horses, obviously, but now you're also bringing in clients, right? So how are we going to create that container if we're not able to really show up for ourselves, our horses? It has to kind of be that way in order to have the efficacy that this practice has the potential to have, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering how now, so it's been about 1.5 years since you've taken the training. Tell us about your life now. What's changed? How is horse wisdom yoga showing up in your life?
What's changed? Okay, so being a teacher for numerous years, I definitely feel that has been my one of my gifts, to break things down and to figure out how to help guide other people. So I look at where I was before and where I am now and think, man, if so many more people can just experience that for themselves. So me being a teacher, I just want to share it with as many people as I can and help them on their journey. I know what has been huge for me. And in all honesty, if you look at who I am now, and even 5 years ago or 10 years ago, like, I have people that look at me and go, actually, I had one person come and say, yeah, I said to somebody, if you had known Rona 8 years ago, like, she's not even the same person. Right. And, but I get it. I know what it's like to be not stuck, but almost, right? Like, I even wrote a post today about, having vision. Like, there was a time where, I did my schooling, I had my job, I was teaching things that I wanted to teach. But I was at the most stressful time in my life and felt like I didn't really have balance, but I should have had it all together. And so I understand how we exist there. And then I understand what it's like to feel and to be so much better grounded and so much aware. And like, I just want to be able to help people to get here too. And yeah, so then so we have created the Wellness Farm Retreat here. And yeah, actually, after being on your property there with the two bunkies, well, COVID kind of came in there too. And then we thought, like, we can't, because originally I was just going to have people come stay in the house. And at first I thought I was going to continue really to focus working with teens. And then I realized I have soon to be 18-year-old daughter. I'm like, it's the parents, it's especially the mothers that, if in order to have a greater impact on people, I as a teacher, when I show up, like, kids, sure, they may like you as a teacher, but they don't really need me. They need their parents. And they need their parents to show up, and they're their greatest role model. So prior to COVID shutting us down, I was going to focus on teens. And then I realized, when I then had the opportunity to work with a group of teens, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the parents, right? That's where it needs to happen. And in order to be the catalyst and the shift for their children, because they are their greatest role models for their kids. So people aren't staying in the house. So we built two bunkies, and in which at some point we can have 4 people come and stay over, and just to create an opportunity to get away, to connect, to slow down. And what is that? What can that look like for you? And how can you have a practice going home in order to find that balance, shall we say? So that's kind of how things have evolved here, and the horses have fully embraced it, and they just always amaze me. Like, when I let go of my agenda and I just listen, and I go down, and how they show up and connect with people, and what they're willing to share, it's just amazing. It just is so, I don't know. I just keep thinking amazing. I just is profound to witness it all. And I feel very blessed to be part of all of it.
It truly, it's so difficult to put words to this work with the horses, I tell you. And I do everything I can to find the words and put out there into the world to be the voice of the horses and allow them to be heard in this kind of a way. And this interview is one of my efforts to do that, just to kind of have people learn from your experience, Rona, and what sounds to me like a time in your life where you had things under control, but you weren't really happy, and then it's like, it's so reflective of very typical lives with horses. There's a lot of control there with people's horses, and but yet, are they happy? Are they really in connection? And it's like, you've learned that flow. To me, it sounds like you're in flow with life. You're in flow with your horses. It's a flow. And I find that's really where bliss and happiness lives, is really being in the flow of life, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
I think bringing your experience, I think you have about 20 years of experience teaching in the school system, bringing that experience and having worked with people's children in that container, and now putting out the invitation to work with their parents and their mothers in particular, in this way. It's like you bring both sides of that experience through. You've got your teaching and being with the children, you've got your experience being a mother, and your experience with the horses and yoga, and bringing all of that forth. What an amazing opportunity that people have to come out there to your farm in Owen Sound and experience this. So I hope, if you're listening and you're feeling invited to Rona and her horses and her energy and her beautiful space, that you will find her on her many avenues. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how to find you, Rona?
Okay. So I have a website, and it's thewellnessfarmretreat.com. And then you can also follow me on Instagram, and it's just Rona, which is Rona. And I know it's a funky spelling. And then _ the Wellness Farm Retreat, or you can find me on Facebook with the Wellness Farm Retreat.
Awesome. So we've got lots of avenues there to reach out to Rona and work with her and her horses, and learn more about her journey and how she can help you on yours. So what would you say is the biggest change that you've experienced since your training a year and a half ago? What's the biggest takeaway or the biggest change that you would say you've experienced?
I just feel grounded, and in that, just more connected to the horses, to myself, to almost like even my purpose here. And yeah, it's all of that. Grounded is the best thing, because I can be high energy and feel that I am pulled and my energy is everywhere, but it comes back to being centered. I guess it's that spiritual growth, it's that connection is it. And then it gives me that feeling of, okay, I know, how to proceed. Right.
Yeah. And I find it's when we connect with that center, that spiritual center, that groundedness, that connection to everything, really, to all that is, it is when we need to be of service, and that's sort of where you're at now, is to be of service and to be sharing this. You've been on a long journey, not just with the Horse Wisdom Yoga, also with your yoga teacher experience, with all your experiences, your teaching, your parenting, your horse life, your horse partnership. So it's, as soon as we sort of come back to that center is when we're being asked to step forward and now start to serve. And that's a wonderful thing that you're offering there at your farm. So that's great. We've got lots of ways to reach you. We've learned a little bit about you and your practice. I wonder if you have a horse story you could share, just something to give us some kind of an idea of some of the cool things that are happening over there with your horses.
Okay. Well, there's a few, but the one that really was huge for myself and for Mora, for the pony that was purchased to be ridden. And she's young and she is very spirited. And as I said, we call her our princess, because she just likes to be like that. That's her. The one day I was mucking in the one stall and she came in, which isn't that's uncharacteristic of her to just come in, especially when I'm cleaning. And she stood beside me and it was very clear. She's like, I need to be ridden. I need to be doing something. And I thought, oh dear, because I honestly, any sport, you can give me any sport, I will master it. I will be good at it. But horseback riding, I honestly thought I'm okay not being like a horseback rider. I can't figure out what to do with my body. Heels down, what? I run on my toes. So when she came to me with that, I thought, oh dear, like I don't see her going to a barn somewhere, and because she has some history, right? She has some healing that she needs to work through as a horse that wants to be ridden. And I thought, oh gosh, it's not my daughter, because they can't move. She can't move past their history either. And I thought, oh dear, that's me, Mora. You've got me. And I apologize in advance. It's pretty neat, because I have this wonderful younger lady who has been in the horse world her entire life, but gets horses on a different level. And it's not just the control, the push, it's tuning in to what's happening with the horse. So she was perfect fit, and she was able to come and help the two of us. And yep, so I've been in the saddle several times with her, and it's so amazing, because when you actually can step out of your head, even as a rider, there was a couple times she wanted to go quick. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I didn't give you the cue to do that. And I was like, what's going on? And I could tell it was like, well, this usually works with my other rider. I don't know if I froze there, but okay. Yeah. And it was so neat to be on her back, but to still be connected to her and listening. I'm like, oh, this is just your patterning. This is usually what you do right now in a lesson. I'm like, oh, we're not doing that. We're going slow. And yeah, so it was such a neat way to be connected with her on the ground. But then when I got in the saddle to go, oh no, this is really what we're working to do. This is what we're working towards. You're dealing with me who's not very good, and I have to figure out my body. And then for her to go, oh, okay, right. And like it was just so neat. Like I would want that for everybody that gets onto a back of a horse, to be able to realize you can still connect with them. It just doesn't have to be a control thing. But sometimes, why do they have those patternings? What has been the past history? And can we connect those dots and just realize it's much like us, like we choose to do the same things that aren't good for us over and over again, but it's attached to something. It's the same thing with the horses. So why is that patterning there for them? So it's been pretty informative, and just to step, because it's a lot, I think, to get on the back of a horse that can have a will, like a mind of its own, but to be connected and to be patient and understanding and knowing that it's a journey of working together and supporting each other. Yeah, so that was my own personal one that I have found has been pretty big for the two of us. And
big time. Well, it's just interesting because it's like when you're talking about sort of her autopilot, right? Like her going into autopilot. Well, right now I would usually speed up, so I'm going to I'm going to do what I usually do when I'm under saddle, right? So I love that, because horse wisdom yoga is a non-ridden, we don't ride the horses in this model, but I love that it's showing up for you in that way, that you're kind of coming back to those philosophies and saying, well, it doesn't have to be autopilot, right? And you're reminding her of that. So it's like when we're working with the horses in horse wisdom yoga on the ground, they're reminding us of our patterns, and they're calling us out on our patterns. And you're able to help her work through her conditioning and her autopilot when you're on the saddle, or in the saddle. So that's kind of neat that it's showing up for you personally in this journey of riding, which is out of your comfort zone, and you're kind of stepping out and right and taking this challenge together with her that she's invited you on, and having it show up for you there. So that's really neat. So any vision that you want to share, anything at all before we close up this call, just any visions or intentions you have moving forward with your practice, or any invitations you have for anybody that might be watching right now? Anything you want to say to the horses, anything at all that you want to share, Rona, as we close up our time together?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I look back, especially on this almost a year now since COVID has come into our life, and it has for us here, even on the farm. So my daughter, as I said, was the rider, but in terms of slowing down and connecting. So even though they don't go under, Shayla doesn't ride more anymore. She actually has developed a good relationship with Mora on the ground and is connected with her. And moving forward, whether, again, for people that do have the opportunity to work with horses or have their own horses, to slow down enough to have that connection. And I know when people didn't have that ability to physically go out and see their horses, they can still send that energy to the horses to connect with them and let them know what's going on and what's, why they can't really be there. And then permission for us as well, for people that don't have horses, just to slow down and to take this as a gift of time in order to actually reconnect with yourself. And as eventually when we get back to whatever our new normal is, that we do have choice on what we want our life to be, and taking this time now to create a vision for, what our work is, or, is our own personal health and well-being, and in body, mind, and spirit, and then even our relationships, right? Like I have a 13-year-old boy at home right now. That's very interesting when we hit the 13-year-old stage.
I have one too.
It's funny, but it's opportunities for us to tune into ourselves and to connect, um and whether that means working with your horse and trying to put on a different lens, or maybe it is coming to a retreat, maybe it is sessions with you, maybe it's sessions with me and working with the horses. But I think it has been a good process for all of us to realize the importance of connecting and slowing down. And as I said, for me, it's been the grounding, it's been that spiritual connecting, but that's something that everybody is open to having if you want that for yourself.
It's true. It's true. And the horses, I think when I hear you say the words grounding and centering, I think of their heavy hooves on the earth, because all four of those hooves solid, on the earth. Just it's so horse-like to be stepping into that groundedness and coming out of that, as you mentioned earlier, kind of the energy being all over the place and bringing it all back, what's yours, and landing and being centered with that. So thank you so much, Rona, for being open to sharing your journey, sharing your offerings, telling us about your horses, and just being here with me today, and whoever's tuning in. It's been such a pleasure, as always, to connect with you and to see you.
Same here. Thank you for doing this, and always a pleasure to see you and have a chat. I'm looking at your dog crashed on the couch behind there.
We did our steps. We did our steps this morning together.
Oh. Awesome.